All right. So we are going to set up our Illustrator file for grid-based design together. So we're going to go into clicking the new file. And so this is what we're going to start with setting up. We're going to set our units to pixels. If they're not already in pixels, I want you to go ahead and set your unit to pixels. Once you have them in pixels, I want you to do 1200 pixel width and a 1200 pixel height. We're going to be using an even number like 1200 because it's going to give us 100 pixel modules on our grids. And so we want to keep the numbers and the math easy. We all want easy math. This gives us easy math. And so that's going to help us. Next, I want you to go ahead and up it to 5 artboards. We're going to go ahead and choose 5 artboards. We're going to start with 5 and we're going to build off these 5. And the reason we're doing 5 is there are 5 types of grids I'm going to teach you in this first demo. We don't need to have any bleed, so don't worry about a bleed. That doesn't matter. We are going to use RGB color space because we're going to be basing this on a digital document. So we're going to do RGB color. We want to make sure that our raster effects, though, are high resolution. So you want them at high 300 pixels per inch resolution. We want the preview mode to be default, to be able to see all of our elements as smooth shapes and to see the preview in full color. So we're going to click on, if your window's not big enough that you have to see it. Underneath it, there's a more settings. So you got to see, I had to open my window bigger to see it. So if you're not seeing the more settings button, pull your window open bigger. And then we're going to click on the more settings button. And you're going to, here's where we can name our artboard. And so we want to name our document first name, underscore last name, underscore P2 for project 2, grids. That's what we're making. Oops, no O in that. And DI2 AI. So that's the name of my document. We have 5 artboards. I want to add the spacing to I want to match the spacing to the size of my artboard. And the reason is we're going to have some of our grids go outside our space. So we want to have enough room between artboards. So I want you to up your spacing to the same size as our artboard, which is 1200 pixels. And then I want you to lay out the columns as 5. I want it all go in a single row. So we're going to have 5 columns. So make 5 columns. And that's all you need to do here. Everything else we've already set up. So we can now say create document. And this is what your document looks like. Close all those. So here you should have a document that looks exactly like mine. Are we all there? Is there anyone that doesn't have this? Okay, I'm seeing some thumbs up. Good, good. All right, we're going to keep going. So we have our document set up. We're going to save it right away because we've named it. We've got the board set up the way we want. Let's go ahead and save it. So we're going to go File, and we're going to save. So save it onto your computer, wherever you're keeping your files for this class. So for me, I'm going to go to my documents, my digital illustration class, my assignments. I'm going to go into my assignment 2. I'm going to create a new folder, summer demo, create, save. I'm going to keep it in the version I'm working, which is the latest version, which is for me Illustrator 2020. Keep everything the way it is and say okay. Okay, so now my file is saved. So anything happens, I already have at least this setup going. So now we're going to quickly go through the Illustrator preferences because we're going to set up our own workspace. We're not going to use a preset workspace. In the past, we would go up to Windows and go Workspace and choose a workspace. We've been using Painting. Our last project, we used Painting. But this time, you can see above here, you can see I've already have a couple because I've made this in the past, but we're going to make our own grid-based workspace. And I'm going to show you how to do that so that it's going to be conducive to this design process. So first things first, we're going to go up to the Illustrator Preferences menu. And I'm going to start with the menu settings and workspace setup so that we are on the same page. We can all be together and using the same things. So we're going to start with open up the Preferences menu, and it should look like this. So the first thing we want to do is look at the general settings, and grids with precision are enabled. So I want to make sure that I have a couple key things. Scale, stroke, and effects are enabled. Oh, I see a couple raised hands. Yep.
So on the computer, on the PC, like where would I find that? Because I don't see the Illustrator here.
Preferences in the PC are under Edit.
Oh, okay.
On
So
PC,
if you're on a PC,
oh, sorry.
Yeah,
on
if you're on a
PC, you can
PC,
also do Control K.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Good question. Yeah. So Control K on a PC. Under Mac, it's under Illustrator. Under PC, it's under Edit. Good question. Thanks. Okay. Okay, a couple key things you want to make sure we have. Grids with precision are enabled. Let's see, where's my grids? Blah, blah, blah. Actually, that's going to be the next window. Anti-alias, let's start here. You want to show tooltips, show rich tooltips. You want to show anti-alias artwork. We want to see our you want to make sure that's checked. Show the home screens when no documents are open, that's fine. Display print size at 100% zoom, append. All of these are ticked correctly. Double click to isolate, you want that checked. Transform pattern tiles, you want that open. Scale, strokes, and effects, I like to have that ticked. Enable content aware defaults. You definitely want to have that ticked. And then that's all you need for this. That's all that matters for right here. We're going to move over to selection and anchor display section. Make sure that the snap to point is checked. So snap to point is up here in the upper right hand corner. We want to make sure that that is checked and that it's anywhere from 2 to 5. I'm going to go ahead and put 2. And this is for fine and the medium scale when we're going to be using. So we want to have this so we can connect and check. We're going to be working with pixel perfect artwork, so we want to make sure we can get at it. So that's what's important on this screen. We're going to move over here to units. We want to make sure we're working in pixels. So you want to have both general and stroke be pixels. Typos stay points, that's fine. So you want to make sure you're in pixels. Smart guides, that's our next one. We want to make sure we're using smart guides. So you want to make sure that all of these smart guides are selected. And then down here on construction guides, you want to set it to 90 and 45 degree. So I have it, you can say 90 and 45 degree angles. Over here in this in the drop down. Those are the angles that are going to be working for what we're doing right now. Now, later, we're going to be working on isometric designs. And when we get to isometric designs, we're going to want to change this angle to 30 degree angles. And this can be changed at any time as we're going along. So this is something you can come back to and change at different times. But right now, for what we're doing, 90 and 45 is what we want. Okay, snapping tolerance to point. 2 to 5 points again is really where you want to be. And the default color should be a bright color so you can see your smart guides. So mine are in magenta, so you can see them. So you want to make sure all of these are good to go. And once you have all of that, that's as far as that matters for what we're doing. You can go ahead down here to the bottom and say, okay. All right, next we're going to go to the view menu at the top. And this is the same on both PCs and Macs, the view menu. And a couple key things. You want to make sure, view menu, that your smart guides are checked, because we're going to be using smart guides. You want to make sure they're turned on. You also want to scoot down and make sure your snap to point is checked. You want to make sure that your snap to grid is not checked and your snap to pixel is not checked. We do not want those checked. You also want to make sure there is no visible grid. So make sure that this is not checked. The show grid is not checked. So these show grid, snap to grid, and snap to pixels, no check. Snap to point, snap to glyph, check. Okay, so that's what we want to make sure is there. In Illustrator, there is a document grid and a pixel grid. But if either of them are enabled and being snapped to, you won't be able to use smart guides and snap to point at the same time. So you can't do them at the same time. So when working with geometric shapes, we need them to snap to each other's points perfectly. So to make sure that edge, artboard, and the bounding box are all showing when they are the options where they're going to stay hid instead. So the next thing is we want to go into rulers. Okay, and I'm going to take and change mine. I'm going to show you why. So here's rulers. You want to change it to artboard rulers because we want each artboard to have its own set of rulers. So we're going to change it to artboard rulers. And so when it's in artboard rulers, it says change to global rulers. So we don't want global, we want artboard. So if it says change to global rulers, you're good. Okay, that means you have the artboard rulers chosen. And that's going to give us a 0 at the top left of every artboard. Now remember, to turn our rulers on, we use Command R. So if I go Command R, my rulers turn on. So if I go to an artboard, when I click on an artboard, notice how the 0, it zeroes out on my artboard. As soon as I click an artboard, I go over to the next artboard, I click on the artboard, and it zeroes to the artboard. So that's my rulers aligning to my artboard. So that's working. So that's what you want. Let's go back to view. What else do I have on my list here? Okay, so that's it from view. I think we're good with that. Now we're going to move over to window. Is everyone with me? I just want to make sure I'm not going too quickly. Okay, good. So we're going to go to window, and window, we're going to be using a lot of different panels. And so making sure you add them to your workspace for the window you'll need. And we're going to do this once, and then we're going to save the workspace. So it's not like we have to do this every time we start working. We're just doing it this once and done. So we're going to go to window, excuse me. And here's the list you're going to need. You want to make sure you have the align panel. So I'm going to click the align panel. Window, we're going to make sure that we have the appearance. You can see they're popping out, so you can see where they are. We're going to make sure that we have color. You can see my color window is already open. We want to make sure we have gradients. Right, they're pulling out right here. We're going to be using layers. Layers are going to be a biggie. We're going to want our layers panel open. we are going to be using Pathfinder. Of course, Pathfinder's here in the navigation right here. So there's Pathfinder. We are going to be looking at stroke. We want to make sure we can see our stroke. Click on stroke. Just down here. We want to make sure we can see swatches, and you can see my swatches are open. Or you can open them here in Windows if you don't have them open. Transform, very important. You can see where that shows up here. And transparency panels. And I'm going to show you where that is here. And it's under, it's showing you here where you highlight transparency. Now, another big one, you want to make sure that we have all of these options open, but I think the one thing that is super handy is the properties panel, and making sure you have your properties panel, because this is the one most of you probably use more than any of the others. So you have this like mini toolbar here that opens a lot of these key things. You're going to be using layers pretty extensively in this project, and the properties panel. So I'm going to kind of put these two panels together, and you see I can just click and drag and put two windows together. So I have my layers and my properties panel together in one floating panel here. That makes it real easy because I'm going to be using properties a lot and I'm going to be using layers a lot. So I want those two next to each other. So now, another thing, another useful thing is there's this control panel across the top of our workspace. If you click this little menu on the far right, this shows you all of the choices you can add to your control panel. So I want to make sure I have the following checked: align, anchor points, artboard, down here to focus mode, live corners down here, live paint. We're going to be using recolor artwork, select same, shapes, transform, transparency, and vertical align. So we have all of those selected. So I want to make sure that when I use any of those, they show up in this upper control panel bar. That's where they'll show up. And that's how you can adjust that. So we are now going to go ahead to save this workspace that we've just kind of opened up and have everything the way we want it. We're going to go to Window, Workspace, New Workspace. Oh, yep, Amber, you have a question?
Yeah, so I actually have two questions. One, somebody in the chat said the 0 isn't aligning to my artboards. And then for me, I just wanted to make sure what windows we need to have open, just so I can make sure I have the right ones.
Yeah, let me back up a minute. So both questions are good ones. So when you're doing your art, let's go back for a second. View, rulers. You have to make sure your rulers right now should say change to global rulers. That's what it should look like in your rulers. If it doesn't say change to global rulers, that means you're in global rulers. You want to be in artboard rulers. That means what you're seeing is the words change to global rulers. I don't see the chat, so let me see who's having the question.
Okay, I think I got it. I just had to like click and then click back.
On the artboard. Yeah, you have to click on the artboard for the zeros to line up.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. So yeah, once I click on the artboard, if I go to the next artboard, it's not going to be at 0 until I click on the artboard. Once I click on the artboard, it becomes zeroed. Okay, good. And okay, so that everyone has that. And then the second thing is the list of all the panels open, all the windows or panels open, is on the notes I gave you on right here. So here is The window menu, add the following panels. These are all the windows that we want to make sure are open.
Okay, thank you. And should we have the toolbar open to advanced?
I would have it on the advanced. That was actually my next point, is with the toolbar, you can make custom toolbars. We're not going to do that. I keep mine on the advanced because I like to have all of them available. And I think it's helpful. So for the toolbars, I would recommend being on the advanced versus the basic. I've in the past made specific toolbars, but for me, I think for this particular project, oh, I just shut my toolbar. That was not what I meant to do. Advanced. I like to have the advanced, which is, this is what the advanced look like. It has 2 columns. It has, you know, just more available. Okay, so once you have those all chosen, we're going to save this workspace, and this is going to be our workspace. And how you do that is you go to workspace, new workspace, and you call it geometric grid, right? And then say okay. And so now when you go up to workspace, you will see your geometric grids workspace you just made here. And so even if you're on another project and you're on, let's just go to a different workspace for a second. If I'm on essentials, so all my panels just closed, but I go to workspace, geometric grids, boom, all my panels open up again. So it takes a minute to set it up, but now that we're set up, we're good. And you just got to make sure you're in the workspace you've just created. So make sure everybody is with me. Everybody with me? All of us have made our workspace. All right.